Welcome back, everyone, to Level Headed Mind, where we provide you with mental health education focusing on many different topics for treatments for mental health. In today's video, we're actually going to be talking about a topic that not too many people talk about, and this is called protracted withdrawal. And today we have an expert in protracted withdrawal, Tomas Starchevsky, and he is a neuroscientist who guides individuals on the path to recovery from antidepressant withdrawal and post SSRI sexual dysfunction, or PSSD. He actually took antidepressants for several years, which initially helped him, but ended up causing this protracted withdrawal state. And this lasted for 6 years. He went through this healing process. And today he is recovered, and he is going to talk to us about how he started this journey, how he realized he had this protracted withdrawal, and then give us hope on what we can do in the healing process or healing journey to help those with protracted withdrawal. So thank you so much, Tomas, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Jezel.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background and how you even got started on medication? It's to my knowledge you were just on one antidepressant, I believe, when this all started.
When it all started, I was on paroxetine, but then I have been switched many times to different medications. But I was studying cognitive neuroscience, and during the psychiatric classes, I was told that those drugs are restoring chemical imbalance. But back then, those theory seemed to be accurate, and since I was an anxious guy, I decided to give it a shot, and I scheduled an appointment with a doctor. And just after like 15 minutes consultation, when I mentioned to him that I'm an anxious and I'm sweating a lot during the social events, I have been prescribed paroxetine. And after a few months, I have been switched to sertraline, which I took the longest from all other medications. And the offending drug was sertraline, who did the most damage to
Your nervous system.
my nervous system. Correct.
Yeah. So how long were you on the medication total?
In total, I believe it was around between 3 or 5 years. It's hard to say precisely, because I was taking them on and off, because I had many discontinuation attempts, and each of them like ended up I was ending up in withdrawal. I didn't know what was happening with me, and then I was going back to psychiatrist, and he was prescribing me another medication, or switching the dose. And so I cannot precisely tell, but I can estimate that it was around 3 or 5 years of medication that I have been taking.
Right. So you bring up a good point with someone who's going through withdrawal. So when you're on an antidepressant, usually a conventional psychiatrist, conventional doctor is going to say, okay, let's cut this in half, and let's, get you off of this, or let's switch you, to another medication if one medication stops working. And so it sounds to me like maybe you started paroxetine, maybe it wasn't helping, and so they wanted to, taper you off of that, get you on something like sertraline instead.
Yes.
And then when you wanted to get off sertraline, you probably were experiencing withdrawal symptoms, and then we're told, hey, you just need something stronger, or you need to get back on this medicine because you're not well. This is your disease. Is that kind of like what happened?
Yes, another aspect is that I was putting up with more and more diagnoses. Like at first, it was social anxiety. Then when I hit the first time I hit withdrawal, then I was like depression. Then they thought, when I had this ruminations in my head due to withdrawal, I was diagnosed with OCD. So I was actually, my condition was getting worse over time, because I was, polydrugged. And they didn't know what was going on, so they just keep adding new diagnoses. And That's why that's how they try to resolve this issue with new diagnosis and new medications. In the end, when I had a severe cognitive impairment after those drugs, I was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment. I was treated with memantine and piracetam. That's for Alzheimer disease. So it was like the downward spiral. When I started paroxetine back in 2009, it was for next few years I was getting worse and worse over time until I find out what was really happening with my mind and my body.
Wow. So and you're young. I mean, to
I'm
be told
30.
that you have mild cognitive impairment, that must have been shocking for you and your family to hear.
I had MRI scan. I was found as the myelin tubes in my brain for like in multiple sclerosis. I was demyelinization in some region of my brain, but it was actually it wasn't correlating with my symptoms. So they didn't have any clue what was going on, why I have such severe memory impact. And I was guessing that maybe those are the meds that I have been taking, the sertraline or other drugs, and they were like, well, it can't be. Those drugs are safe, and they were like, instantly, let's say, gaslight my judgment.
Mm.
So I was also freaked out because it was my last year on the college. I needed my sharp mind to graduate, and it was a difficult time for me. But it was only the beginning of the problems, because the real deal happened when I finally decided to discontinue the medications once and for all. So
Right.
yeah, the whole journey of polydrugs is happened. Just I have very my memory from this period of time is very shattered. It's like
Yeah. Wow. And a lot of people out there are struggling with their psychiatric medications and are probably going through similar things right now where they're going to multiple providers. They know that they don't feel good at all. They maybe even feel worse than when they even started their journey on the medication, and they keep getting these different labels. I hear it all the time, unfortunately, as well, when someone says, "Oh, well, they told me I'm bipolar," or they told me I'm this, and it's when you look back on it, you're like, no, this is obviously due to this medication,
yes.
that's causing this for you. So when did you realize then in this, it sounds like you were in this cognitive impairment state, you started questioning, like, wait a minute, this is probably the medication. I mean, you're a smart guy, you're a neuroscientist, you were probably starting to put the pieces together, but really, how did it, did you realize, oh, I'm in withdrawal, or, oh, this is like a very serious thing, like I need help?
Every time I reinstated, I felt that something is different. Like each time I, let's say, reinstated the same drug, it didn't have the same effect. It was like the side effects were stronger and the positive ones were like subsiding. And I knew that the longer I took it, the more severe I was becoming. And then back in 2010, I was googling stuff. You didn't have much resources online, and I found maybe like surviving antidepressants, but I was very skeptical. Like online forum people were talking, and maybe my case is different, maybe not. But I was very skeptical until the point when I said, okay, I started experiencing like total genital numbness. So it wasn't like it couldn't be any psychological effects like anorgasmia, like total loss of sexual function. At one point it was obvious to me that those were the meds. Like all the symptoms were drug related. Not it wasn't my my mind. It wasn't my stress or trauma or whatever anxiety. So eventually, after many years, I just realized that all that I was going through was drug related, not the opposite how the doctors were saying.
Right. So you realize, this isn't me. I don't have all of these mental illnesses. This is the
Yes,
medication
yes,
causing these symptoms that's making it look like I have these different things. So you kind
yes,
of had
yes.
that aha moment. with what little resources you could grab up from the internet, which I think is great, that at least that surviving antidepressants was around, that you can kind of get this idea like, wait a minute, is this something I should look into?
Yeah.
So when you ended up realizing, okay, I'm in this state, I need to come off this medication, how did you go about coming off the medication? Did you go back to the forum and ask for help, or did you find someone to help you? Did you do it on your own?
No, unfortunately, I didn't have the knowledge of tapering and that you need to go slow. And my doctor actually told me when I had an appointment, he told me during the appointment that, well, those drugs are safe to take, to taper. You can just quit them within 2 weeks and you will be fine. And so I did. And I was fine. Like he was right to some point, because the protracted withdrawal hit me after 8 months post discontinuation.
Wow.
So then everything started over, and I didn't know what was going on once again, because 8 months later I started to experience the real deal protracted withdrawal, because I had withdrawals before, like when I tried to discontinue, but they were more actually like acute withdrawals. But the protracted withdrawal occurred after 8 months, so my body was like saturated with the medication for so long that it took 8 months for the body to try to start the healing process, the returning to homeostasis. So
Right.
8 months for me to see the changes that my body is resolving those meds. So
Wow. So 8 months after you stopped, this is sertraline, and the
yeah,
other,
sertraline was
were
the
there
last
other
drug.
medications, like you mentioned memantine and
I took memantine, piracetam, moclobemid, trazodone, pregabalin for short time, fluvoxamine.
Oh.
The list can go on. It was a
Yeah.
long list,
So
but
you had
like,
other medications kind of off and on in between
yes,
there, but when you decided to come off completely, you were just on the sertraline at that point?
the last medication was
That was the
sertraline.
last medication. So
Yeah.
you were on sertraline by itself, and you were like,
Yes.
okay, I need to get off this. The psychiatrist says, hey, you know what? In a couple weeks, we're just going to cut this in half, and you should be done. And then you were like, all right. And you felt good. 8 months later, bam. So
Yes.
what does that feel like when, because you went through withdrawal, so you realize this is acute withdrawal. Now you've got the hindsight view of now, boom, I'm being hit with protracted withdrawal, which maybe you didn't realize it then, but something was different. So can you explain how different this is so people can understand that there's a difference between acute withdrawal and protracted withdrawal?
Yeah. Okay. So in my case, because each case is different, but in my case, the acute withdrawal were mostly physical symptoms. Like I had I don't know, sleeping difficulties, eating difficulties. I was sweating a lot. I was shaking. I had all those sort of physical symptoms. But and then they subsided within a few weeks, and I was quite fine. But the acute, the protracted withdrawal was like somebody turn off the light, and one day I woke up and say, hey, I feel sad, like I feel really sad. I cannot go to work, I cannot do stuff, I cannot, where are my emotions? Why can't I enjoy anything? Why I lost interest in basically in life? And I was, let's say, a little bit prepared for this, that it will come. But it was 8 months, and I already forgot that it's gonna happen. And when it happened, the next between 3 or 4 years were like that. And it was I was, for a few years I was bedridden, and then it was dark times with suicidal ideation and all the things that I was back then. I was living with my family, and I became, all of a sudden I became extremely angry. It's called like neuro emotions. I couldn't control my temper. I became mean, upsetting. I became frustrated. I was hitting my face with fists. I was yelling, somebody take this pain away from me. I'm an atheist, but I was begging to God, please help me. Somebody can help me. After a year and a half of this torment, I went back to the doctor because I couldn't handle this withdrawal any longer. And I say, okay, prescribe me something safe that will take these suicidal thoughts away, because I will end up dead. And he prescribed me trazodone. I took literally one pill of trazodone that's supposed to be like, that's supposed to not have this sexual side effects, that's supposed to be safe regarding the sexual stuff, because it was bothering me the most, the loss of sexuality. And it crushed me. It made my feel, I had like, I don't know, 5% of progress during this year and a half, but it crushed me. It made me even worse. And then I knew that it's like, that this isn't the way. There is no other drug to save me. There is no other medicine, no supplement, no whatever to treat this condition. And I need to survive this or end this. And it was like, I was for the next 2 years in that severe state. Then I decided to do everything I could to restore my disrupted homeostasis, my brain functions, my bodily functions. So it's still, difficult to talk about this, because I remember how everything felt blank. I didn't feel like human being, and I did terrible things to my family. I was very aggressive, offensive, insulting, because of the deep suffering that I was going through to everyone. I was banished from Reddit groups, surviving antidepressants, from everywhere, because I was, convinced that this is permanent, that this is life that I will be living for the rest of my life. And I was very offensive and I was in a very dark place for a long time. Yeah.
Wow. So when it sounds like when this hit you, it was a lot of depression, darkness.
Yes.
But you were also having, because you mentioned the numbness and the sexual dysfunction symptoms.
Yes.
So you were having those too. Were you also having those physical symptoms along with this, or was this all just mental?
No. The total genital numbness, like no, my genitals felt like, like a rubber, like maybe the best comparison would be to, like, if you inject lidocaine during the
Lidocaine.
Lidocaine. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it felt like I felt the touch, but no pleasure response. The reward circuit was cut off from any pleasure. Looking at, like, a naked body didn't give any kind of this tingling sensation in your head, in your body. There was nothing. I couldn't, I was, when I was going for a walk and I saw like couples holding hands, I felt such a grief that I lost it. I lost the connection with other human being. I tried to, build in a relationship, but I felt nothing. Like and then I had to relearn how to, fake human emotions to basically survive at the very beginning. And then I started, those emotions started to returning. But at the very beginning of this journey, I had to fake human emotions. It sounds bizarre, but this was my coping mechanism.
Wow. So you had to fake like being happy and being around other
smiling,
people.
even my muscles, my
like
face, like I was mostly dull, like sad. And when I was, I had this in my mind, okay, I can isolate myself from friends and family, or I can pretend, to replicate my behaviors. And I remember I went for my best friend, his birthday party, and all of the friends were chattering, laughing, playing video games, doing stuff, and I was like there, and I was okay. Let's pretend that I'm also there and I'm enjoying this event. I couldn't tolerate any psychiatric. I resigned from alcohol, from weed, because it also had this different effect on my nervous system compared to how I reacted before the meds. So it was all disrupted, bizarre, and like psychotic-like experience for me, the protracted withdrawal. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
inside me. I can feel it right now, and yeah.
When you say, the feelings, these emotions, you're faking these emotions, that must have been difficult for you. So it was like, it's like you're putting yourself like exposure therapy, really. Like when someone goes through trauma and they start exposing themselves, through different scenarios, so that way they can try to help re-regulate their nervous system, right?
Something like that,
So
like
that
fake
they
it till
they
you
don't have
make
to
it.
be scared about, driving or doing, so it's like a little bit of exposure therapy you're probably doing to help get your brain back online, to say,
Yes,
hey, like I've got to start doing something, or else it's either that I integrate with people and fake it,
yeah,
or I'm in my room all by myself with my thoughts, which are very dark, and
yes.
and I might do something. That's what
So
it
I
sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have chosen the option with, faking. I fake it till you make it, or hard code it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That
yeah.
this
So
takes it to a whole new level, though. I mean, it must have been difficult. And so with those symptoms you mentioned, were there other physical symptoms? Because some people will say they get burning sensations, tingling, like not just in the genitals,
yeah,
but other
okay.
areas, like their head, migraines. They get tingling and numbing in their hands and feet. Those type, were there any other of those types of symptoms?
Yeah, yes, I had a urination problem. Like it wasn't frequent urination, but I think it was related to muscle contraction. It's difficult for me to describe it, but I had this. I also had sweating problems. I stopped sweating at all
Mhm.
for a long time. I had tension in my forehead. I had some kind of tics, but I had hearing difficulties. I had blurred vision, like a diabetic, like something like maybe I was in some sort of pre-diabetic state, like insulin resistance. I don't know. I had food intolerance. I had, from what I recall, I had maybe some sort of constipation.
Mhm.
I wasn't focusing on that. I was focused on what was going inside my head, and my body was simply numb. I had maybe my coordination wasn't perfect. I didn't have this, the proprioception of my body, and I didn't have, maybe that my bodily temperature was also different. I was colder than it's supposed to be. I didn't track down those symptoms, during the process. So
Yeah.
right now it's difficult for me to precisely tell you, but most of the symptoms were mental, like the
Yeah.
dark depression, the suicidal thoughts, the numbness, like emotional numbness, cognitive impairment. I couldn't read. I couldn't understand. I couldn't speak. My speech became very very blurred. I was fluent at English, and I
Mhm.
couldn't speak English anymore. Like right now, it still feels it's not the same as it used to be. I consider myself to be recovered, but it's been so many years that I cannot precisely point out that, okay, this is me who I was like from 15 years ago, because
Yeah.
I'm a different person now. So it's like I feel fine, but it's hard to put it in percentage, or which symptoms is from what.
Right.
But it's
Yeah. But
yeah.
it's so protracted withdrawal has changed your life. Like you
Yes,
went through this very significant state for many years
yes.
of, mental turmoil, which you never experienced before. I think it's key to talk about that. Your primary reason was anxiety. You were maybe a little
Social
shy,
phobia.
you
Yeah,
know.
it was. I was diagnosed with social phobia, but I was okay. I had my childhood trauma. My parents weren't perfect. Like
Mhm.
everyone is going through that. Nobody's childhood is perfect, but
Mhm.
I had some anxiety, like from the schemes from home, that has been, that I developed very, like the social shyness, but it
Mhm.
wasn't something to be like, to end up like this, to have this 15 years. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah. And so I think it's a good time to talk about, all this turmoil and everything you went through, but you found healing. I want people to realize, because There's a lot of people struggling right now with very similar situation as you. Um, with all these symptoms, the mental anguish, the physical symptoms, and maybe they're losing hope and they've been going for years, right? But tell us how you started like coming out of this. What was it that you started realizing, oh, like this isn't permanent, because you were saying that, hey, you were kicked out of all these forums because you're
I was
like,
kicked out from being called the permanent guy, the dooming guy. I was kicked out from everywhere because I was convinced it was permanent. I was telling everyone, or I was commenting every YouTube video, this condition is permanent. People don't recover, and I was so toxic to
yeah,
everyone because I was very low and miserable, and my apologies to everyone who I offended back then, but
yeah.
it's
Well,
only
you were struggling. You were going through a very difficult time, and in your mind, it was permanent because it was going
true.
on for years. So you were
Yeah.
like, "What in the world? This is not. You don't heal from this. This is permanent." So in your mind,
Yes.
you were like, "This is permanent. I'm not going to heal from this." But what was that turning point? Like, when did you start realizing, "Oh my gosh, I am healing. I'm getting better."
Okay,
And
so
mhm.
yeah, so for the first 3 years, I was experimenting only with supplements because it's the easiest way. People do like easy way to pop a pill and resolve all the life issues. So I've decided, okay, since I took one pill and they destroyed my life, maybe I will take another and it will fix me back to who I was. And well, it didn't happen. It made me aware that I was experimenting here and there. And then I decided, okay, it doesn't work. I'm at my lowest, and it's like either I will end my life because I cannot enjoy life anymore at all, or I do something drastic about it. And I decided to first time in my life to participate like in gym classes. Like I was started to do heavy weightlifting, and at first it was dramatic. It was I didn't get any the dopamine response, the pleasure response from the physical activity. Actually, I was at the very beginning, I was feeling worse.
Mhm.
But then I noticed, I remember I did some cardio, I did some like 10 kilometers jogging, and then I get this first time within like after 3 or 4 years, I get this pleasure response, tiny pleasure response, and it gave me a little bit of hope. Okay, I can work for my dopamine. Like I have this the limbic system, the reward circuit is like messed up, but I need to put a lot of extra work to get this even tiny drop of dopamine to be released in my brain. And I replicated it. Okay, and I it didn't do much beside it, but I kept going, and to the point when I started noticing that I'm having some better days, and I was thinking, maybe it's the weather, maybe I ate something different, maybe this, maybe that. But then I followed the pattern. I noticed that I was starting to having this wave and windows pattern, like the days where feel better and the following days are a little bit worse. But I noticed some gradual improvements, and it kept me motivated to do something extra to my body. And then I started to this is the I believe it was a breakthrough for me, was the diet,
Mhm.
the ketogenic diet. I did 5 days of fasting, like very low ketonic caloric diet, like 600 calories per day for 5 days,
Wow.
or for 6 days. It restored something that was disrupted in my guts. I had better tolerance to food. I didn't get this. I stopped having this calm downs from eating carbohydrates. I get my memory become almost pre-medication. And then I add some relaxation techniques, Wim Hof breathing, cold shower exercise, and then I start, be actually obsessed about, healthy lifestyle, whatever you call it, just like, you are also like the advocate for the
Mhm.
healthy lifestyle, the holistic approaching for your body. I did the sunlight exposure, all things, but the key factor was time itself, for sure.
Mhm.
Like that, the passing time was also the played a huge role in the recovery process. But I needed to, do something drastic about my body to help it to restore the homeostasis, because I believe this condition is nothing else but autonomic dysregulation. Something is like deeply dysregulated. We don't know yet what's precisely going on in our brains or guts or whatever, but the point is we need to do everything to restore homeostasis. And I truly believe that the key factor is autophagy, increased autophagy. So we need to regenerate our nerve cells, and ketosis is play a huge role in autophagy. Another thing is this brain neurotrophic derived factor BDNF that is being stimulating during physical activity.
Yes.
And I followed that path. I started, I ran a half marathon. I did heavy weightlifting. I built muscle. Then unfortunately, I had back then cardiovascular problems. So I had to stop for a short time, but right now I'm fine and keep doing what I was doing. And the benefits stayed there. And from there, it was like year by year I was getting better, and I was just started feeling more and more of a human again. So yeah,
that's wonderful. So even with the sexual dysfunction, a lot of people say that's permanent.
okay.
Did that get better as you started doing these things and you start noticing my brain's responding better, my cognition is better? Did that improve as well with these different things?
It was it started to resolving as a part of a puzzle. The first thing that I noticed was emotional and pleasure response, then cognitive function, and unfortunately lastly the thing that resolved as the last part was the sexual stuff. Like I could feel the attraction, the arousal, all the stuff started working again. So it was the last part, because from my perspective is like, from the evolutionary point of view, your brain needs to restore things that are the most crucial for our survival. That is, for instance, cognition and emotions, not necessarily sexuality. Sexuality was the last thing to resolve, but it was just a piece of the puzzles, because it's like all connected. Sexuality is connected to emotions and cognition as well.
Absolutely. And from what I understand, in the hypothalamus, if you get too much serotonin in there, that is where a lot of the sexual dysfunction comes from using these medications. Is that correct in that area?
Possibly, I read about it too, but we don't know yet what's going on. There is like theory about serotonin receptor desensitization, like in the prefrontal cortex, 2H1, 2HC receptors, the hypothalamus as well. I do believe, that every region of the brain is disrupted, cerebrum as well. Temporal lobe is disrupted, everything, because your eyes are blurred, your cognition, so prefrontal cortex, your movement, so the cerebrum, so the spinal cord, because of the temperature. So I believe it's the serotonin receptors are even in the heart. So even I read the study about antidepressants that they have been prescribed to cardiac patients with cardiovascular disease, and they had they affected the heart. I can't recall right now, but the point is that they are so vastly brought around the body in whole areas. So they are not so selective as we think they are.
Right.
So the damage is vast.
Wow, that is a powerful point to make, because I think the audience needs to understand that what he's saying here is that, first of all, we have serotonin receptors throughout our whole body, our gut, our brain, right? You mentioned the heart. So when the medication says selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and they're targeting these certain things, that's how we think it works. These are theories, right? These are what the companies tell us. This is how we think this medication works. But really, when we look at someone like Tomas here with protracted withdrawal and many others that I've seen in similar situations, we realize it's actually affecting the whole body. The brain, and remember, the brain is like our master organ, right? It's what's telling everything else what to do. So when you start affecting the brain and the nervous system, everything else is going to fall apart. So I
Yes.
think that's a good point to bring up. But the fact that there is hope with time and with doing a lot of the work that you did, you started exercising, you started eating right, you went to ketogenic diet, which I think I've been hearing more and more about has been really good for mental health in general because it's lowering inflammation, it's lowering brain inflammation. So you mentioned autonomic dysregulation, which is like, where your nervous system's fight or flight mechanism is just completely kaput. It's not
Yeah.
working right. It's dysregulated. So you had to do these things to help it to get back on track. And what you mentioned, brain derived neurotropic factor, which is neuroplasticity and getting the brain kind of back to relearn how to do all of these things the way it's supposed to do, relearn how to accept emotion and respond properly, with dopamine and different emotions and feelings, which is great. And so with all of this, you mentioned 6 years. So what the timeline of 6 years, was it like that last year? So was it like at 5 years you started noticing this, or was it like halfway through? When did you start noticing the waves and windows, these periods of like, oh, I'm feeling okay, and you started kind of going full force on the exercise and diet?
So around like 3 or 4 years out, I started this exercise regimen, and the noticeable changes were around like 5 years out of the meds, and I needed to be consistent about it. I was adding like on top of that more and new daily routines to follow to help my body to restore the homeostasis, this autonomic dysregulation. As you mentioned, this also cortisol also played a huge role in this process, because I didn't have for many years I didn't have this fight or flight response at all. Like I was close to die in car accident because the truck driver was so close to me when I was riding a bike. I didn't get this, the adrenaline rush, this shock of the body that something is, threatening my survival. I didn't get this. I was just like, okay, I was close to die. I didn't feel anything. People do bungee jumping to test themselves if they are responsive to any stimulus. So it was that severe. But speaking about timeline, it was around like five. I was 5 years out when I noticed that things are stable once again, and I'm heading the right direction. And and when I was confident that something is definitely some positive changes are definitely happening due to my hard work that I was, implementing in my daily routines.
Right. And I think that's a huge point to make because when people start experiencing waves and windows, they get the windows, which are the moments of like feeling good for a period of time, and this
Yes.
can last days, or for some people maybe even a couple of weeks, and they think they're out of the woods, and then they get a wave, which is a wave of symptoms of protracted withdrawal that come back, and then they feel like, oh no, here we go again. So it's very frustrating, but it sounds to me like about when you started noticing these waves and windows, and you started kind of going in on your basically your treatment plan, right? The exercise, the
Mhm.
diet, like all of these things, the windows became broader,
Yes.
and the time started. And then by 5 years, so about so it took about 2 years of these waves and windows, 5 years in, then it's really like, okay, I'm really in this healing journey. I'm starting to get better and better, and I notice it more and more. And then
Yeah.
by 6 years, you realize, well, I guess I'm healed now. But you still have some things that are a little different. You mentioned earlier, maybe your language recall might not be as good, and things of that nature.
Because it's been so long. Like I started taking those drugs in 2009, so it's like how many? A lot, like 15 years. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a lot has changed. I haven't been using, English for a while because since I graduate college, I cannot for sure, I cannot be sure if it's like drug related or if it's like, because I haven't used my language or because I
Hmm.
got older. So there are many questions still in my head, like, is it the drugs related stuff or not? Is it age related stuff? Because it's been so long. So,
Mhm.
but the longer I'm off the meds, the more confident I become in every area of my life, including the language. But I still feel like maybe some minor things that can be improved in my mental sharpness
Mhm.
or whatever. But it's like nothing compared to what I was dealing with at the very beginning. But
Wow.
but
Yeah, and I have to say your language is actually pretty good.
yeah,
Just to let you know, like
thank you.
your English is very, very clear to me. You have an accent, but that's expected, but your words are very articulate and you're using good words, and so I think you have a good grasp of the English language for sure. And your writing as well. You've wrote a couple of articles, for Mad America and on your website and information. So your use of the language is very good, I have to say.
Okay,
Um,
so maybe
yeah,
that's not so bad. Maybe it's only my
your
impression.
perception, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Sometimes it is, but so I'd like you to now, so now you're in this healing part, right?
yeah.
So you're healed and you're working with others to help give them hope and healing. What does that look like? If someone comes to you in protracted withdrawal, how do you help them, get through their recovery?
First, I'm making sure that they are aware that this is not permanent, because that's exactly what I wanted to hear from anyone. And it's difficult for them to believe. I've been many times I'm accused that, okay, you're this lucky one. Oh, you're not, you weren't that severe. Oh, you did this, you did that. Oh, I'm on duloxetine, I'm not on sertraline. It's SNRI, it's different story. And it's like, people need to be convinced that, okay, that this is legit and it's gonna be better. And um, the next step would be to follow routine. Like each case is different. Sometimes they cannot even go for like 5 minutes uh, running or for 5 minute walk. So I'm making agreement with them. Okay, for the next session you will do this and that, or you will follow the restrict from processed food in your diet. And I'm trying to, I'm still learning. I'm new into this, and
Mhm.
I'm not, I'm doing, I'm trying to follow the same thing I did, which helped me, and
Yeah.
trying to be, as more as understandable as I can be. I have this lady from Germany. She's 61, and it's like, she's the age of my mother, and it's
Mm.
difficult experience for me to, I don't want to push her to do stuff, and everything sounds so bizarre for her. But I do believe that our bodies are very similar regarding some basic survival mechanism and auto-regulative mechanism, like this mentioned homeostasis. So I do believe that everyone will benefit from the same stuff. Like if I'm right about this inflammation theory, if
Yes.
because it might play a huge role in this condition, and I do believe it does. So. Um, so there are people who are still on the meds, so they need to taper down
Mhm.
first. So I'm advising the hyperbolic tapering or Ashton method. So like
Mhm.
go slow, low, and start low and go slow. So
Yeah.
not to stop the medication abruptly. And I do sometimes I do recommend some safe supplements
Mhm.
as a last result, because
Mhm.
they sometimes people are pushing to their, can you recommend me something I can take to ease my pain? And I say, okay, I hardly, I strongly advise you not to take those until you feel more stable, because if you crash you will feel, you will get panic attack, or be in this panic mode. If it help, is it helping me or is it making me worse? Is my genitals numbing improving, or am I losing it? So the point is that I need to be very cautious about all the methods, because people are very at first they are very skeptical, they are very unmotivated. This is the issue, because if you go to like a gym trainer, personal trainer, the people are motivated to lose weight, for instance, and they do these exercises, they following some diet plans, more or less. You're working with diet as well, so you know how difficult it is. But with protracted withdrawal, it's like people sometimes they stopped reaching out for you to you for like a month, and they say, okay, I cannot do this anymore. And it's difficult for me sometimes to be in this process, because it's still like pretty emotional for me to help those people, because I exactly know where they are at that very moment of withdrawing from those medications.
Yeah.
So,
But at least you're giving them hope, and it sounds like you're helping to guide them. But some people recognize it's difficult, so they just need to kind of step back and take a break,
yes,
and then they realize, I probably need to call Tomas again to help me get through this, because I realized I was probably doing better when I was doing those things. But it's
yes,
just because it's so difficult, because I hear people say some people are stuck in bed, and it's so difficult for them just to get out of bed and have the
yeah,
energy to check the mail, to
yeah.
walk outside their house and get their mail,
Yeah,
those types of
you
things.
need to have this motivation to actually have this call and have the attention span for like 1 hour to talk with me. So it
Mhm.
also is challenging, and it's like
Yeah.
I don't feel offended when someone like say have a, because I recommend to do this like every week, to have this new
Yeah.
routine. And I do believe the recovery, we build recovery from protracted withdrawal by implementing routines, and this is the way to go. Like everything in life, if you want to achieve it, you need to implement healthy routines to your life, and you will be happy. And
Yes.
period. And this is my philosophy. And but working with people that are bedridden, and they are like constantly suicidal, and they don't believe me. Simply, the majority they don't believe, because they are so low. And I don't blame them, because I was like that for many years, and I was banished from every community because of I didn't see any hope, and I was taking hope from others that I'm not proud of.
Yeah, but you were in a dark place, and now you're giving hope back.
Yes, I'm giving hope back, and I wish I could give more. Like I wish I could. I was a scientist. I was like every time I needed a proof from something. Prove me that this works or that. But I cannot, prove. It's difficult to prove something that I'm smiling. I developed my website. Do this. I did it. But you are in a very like tunnel thinking. The people
Yeah.
are in tunnel thinking, and they see the worst in every aspect of their life in this condition, in protracted
Yeah.
withdrawal. So how can they see, okay, this guy's recovered, so this is the hope. But this is the way. I'm not the only one. There's like I saw on the channel the Angela Peacock. So it's like there are many others who are also achieved this and
Yeah.
recovered from those medications. So it's like my story just one of many, and hopefully there will be more
That's
people
right.
who will come around and say, okay, guys, no worries, it will get better. It
It
does for
will.
everyone. I genuinely believe, but because one time I have been offended because I told people that people do recover, and people were commenting told me that, okay, you cannot say that because you don't know for sure. Just because it happened for you, it doesn't mean that it happens for everyone. And it's like I have been gaslighted many times when I was positive, and this is very common in the community, that people who bring hope, they are being instantly gaslighted and doomed, and say, okay, you're a false positive giver, false hope giver, you toxic positivity. I wasn't like positive guy. I was just stating the facts that, okay, I have recovered eventually from this condition, and here I am. So
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
nothing much I can do. I there is no treatment for it, like
Yeah.
medical treatment or.
That's true. And I think you make a good point with some of these forums out there. Um, they're I think maybe because it's forums are kind of for more people are looking for those who are in the midst of the struggle. They're in their deepest darkness, and they're trying to grasp for, okay, how can I find the answers to what I'm going through? And so you had two dynamics. The first time you were in there, you were like, there's no way, there's hope, you know, and you were one of those people, right? You're like, there's no there, this is permanent, this is not gonna get better. And so boom, they kicked you out. Then when you came back and you were like, hey, I was wrong, sorry, you know, it is, you do get better. Then you had all the negative people, well, no, no, that's not true. How can
yeah,
you say that? Don't give us false hope, you know. So there's this whole dynamic in these forums, and it's one of the reasons why I tell, you know, my clients, you know, don't go to those forums, you
yes,
know,
I do the
because
same.
they're not really, you know, a lot of people are struggling in there, and you're going to get a lot of, you know, information about how bad things are, and how, and that gets your mind thinking more
Yeah.
negative. It feeds that negative cycle. And when you're
Yes,
in protracted withdrawal, you're in that negative cycle. It's like going on and on and on. And so you have to start, you do have to start feeding yourself positive things, and not
yes,
to the point where it's toxic, but, you know, realistic things, setting realistic goals and focusing on, hey, I was able to get up today and wash my face. Hey,
it
I
is
was able to
something,
get up
right?
today and brush
Yeah.
my teeth. I was able to walk to the mailbox today. Like, these are positive goals you're setting for yourself, and that's what Tomas is helping, you know, his clients with and he's working with them to show them, like, you can do these little things, and eventually that little thing turns into something bigger because it
Yes,
starts to
step by
become a
step.
routine. Mm-hmm.
Yes, step by step. You cannot expect to be, you know, recovered all like within a few weeks, but you need to, you know, enjoy the healing process. Like, you know, be happy that you made it today, that you brushed your teeth, that you do something. And if you look back from a year ago, you will see, okay, I'm a little bit better, and then you will follow the next year, and you know, you have these checkpoints in your journey. I did, and it was something that was keeping me sane, keeping me alive. But you know, people expect to be instant cured, but it doesn't, it won't happen overnight. And the journey is long, it's painful, but you know, as you said, like staying all those forums, like they're, it's difficult to, you know, to convince those people that things can get better, and that things will get better for them. So I'm focusing on those who are, like, you know, conscious about who are willing to, you know, do changes in their life to achieve recovery, or you know, improvement, or improve their symptoms from those medications,
Yeah.
because yeah.
You have to be willing to do the work and recognize that there's work to be done. And
Yes.
unfortunately, there is no magic bullet. There is no magic supplement you can take or thing you can take once you're in this state. It is a matter of, like Tomas was saying, time, but also putting in the work to help your brain and nervous system recover. And I think that's a good point to make. And you know, if anyone here who's listening wants to work with you, Tomas, where would they go? You have a website?
They can schedule a call with me through Calendly on my website. You can just simply click book a session, and then you can schedule a call with me, so we can discuss your issue, and, you know, try to plan this, plan a strategy how to overcome this difficult situation step by step, and basically from my website. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah. So his website is the protracted withdrawal.com. I'll make sure that
.com.
that is linked down in the description, and we'll make sure to put it on the screen here for you. So it's protracted-withdrawal.com. And he also has a YouTube channel he just started. He's going to start putting some videos up there about his journey and some information scientifically about withdrawal and what's going on, and also helping to dispel a lot of the misinformation that's out there, you know, to get, you know, about how these medications work. I think that you mentioned that you wanted to start putting some information that's more accurate about these medications that are out there,
To
and
spread
how.
awareness, for people to be cautious about what they're doing if they decide to take pills like that. They those pills have consequences, and they people
Absolutely.
be aware of that. No, they're
Yeah.
not just happy pills.
Absolutely. And that's why it's important to use your skills before starting pills,
Yes, I love that
because
slogan. Yeah.
this is, unfortunate result of what can happen to someone. So when I say risk versus benefit, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, this medicine might help you for a short time, like it did with Tomas, but then there can be this ugly side that rears its head. And now the medicine is not helping you, it's hurting you. And you have to weigh that risk versus benefit out. Is that risk worth it for you to feel better for a moment now? And would it be better for you to use skills first before resulting to pills? I think our society needs to get away from that mentality of popping a pill for an easy fix. We need to be more open to doing the work, cleaning up our lifestyle, cleaning up our diet, getting out in nature, exercising, doing all of the things we should be doing to help us get through life, because stressors of life are going to happen. There are going to be situations that make us uncomfortable, but we can't pathologize everything. We
Yeah,
can't put a diagnosis on everything.
just
So
resolve everything that affects your body negatively, and then consider taking the pill, not the opposite. Exactly. The slogan
absolutely.
is precisely
Absolutely.
how it's
Yeah.
supposed to
Yeah.
be. But
Thank you so much for being here. And for you guys in the audience for, listening and taking your time to listen to this interview. I really hope it's helped you. Do you have any last words of hope, encouragement for those viewers that are listening, Tomas?
just don't consider this permanent. Even though your brain tells you like it's permanent, it's gonna be like this forever. It won't. And take your time. Don't rush things. Don't force yourself to do things that you cannot do. Like each case is different. Each journey is different, and do your best to help your body heal by addressing proper things like proper diet, proper routine, lifestyle changes that are beneficial for your body, and then your body will pay you off with healing and improving your functions that has been deteriorated due to the medications. And it's basic human biology, and it affects every organism. So I strongly recommend for all of you who are dealing with protracted withdrawal to just stay there, not to give up, because it's worth it. Once you notice the first improvement and changes and first emotions and happiness, you will realize that it was worth not to give up, because you have one life, and if you lose it, you will lose everything. And just don't.
Mhm. Very good. Thank you so much for that. And thank
Thank you.
you all for watching. And as always, I wish you well on your mental health care journey. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys all next week. Take care.